This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for, and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads, and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house. You've heard us talk about DraftKings, the leader in daily fantasy sports, and how payday can come every day by entering their contest with huge cash prizes up for grabs. This week is jam-packed with action ranging from basketball to golf, and DraftKings has plenty of ways for you to have a front row seat to all of the action. Making a lineup on DraftKings adds excitement to every night and is simple to do. All you got to do is add your lineup and feel the sweat like never before, and every moment means more with a DraftKings lineup on the line. DraftKings has paid over $7 billion to users across all sports, and DraftKings is always going to be the leader in daily fantasy sports. There's no better place to get in on all of the action. Now that you know how to play, download DraftKings app and sign up using the code THPN. That's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network. New users will get a free entry with their first deposit. That's code THPN, THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network, to get a free entry with your first deposit. Only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply, and see DraftKings.com for details.
Welcome to episode 51 of the House of Hockey podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Rae Rae.
And I'm Breezy.
And quick life update. I am not at my home. I'm currently in the middle of a cross-country road trip, and I am in St. Louis. But by the time you listen to this, I will be in a new location. But that is what I have been up to, and trying to watch some hockey. And I'm excited to put on the women's game here. We're recording this on Sunday, so I'm excited to watch the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association Secret Dream Gap Tour of hockey that's going on in Madison Square Garden, which is super awesome. It's the first ever professional women's game to be played at MSG.
That's nuts.
I
mean,
know.
MSG is pretty iconic, so that's awesome.
Oh yeah. And then in other exciting news, my Chicago Blackhawks announced that they are also partnering with the Secret Dream Gap Tour with the women. They're going to be hosting a game. I had to write it down. March 6th and 7th in Chicago at the United Center with an all-female NBC Sports broadcast crew. So this is just very exciting, and I really think we all should be supporting the women's side of the game as well as the men. And these kinds of moments and nationally televised games, it's a really big deal. It's really important to watch. It just brings more eyes, which creates more opportunities for them to have a real professional, league, and to grow the game just across the board, because really we want to grow the game of hockey in this community. So I was excited to see that.
Very exciting to see that. And I will pump your tires a little bit right now, because I had no idea that this was even going on, and because I follow you at the Hockey Lady, I was able to find out about this, and you basically answered my questions. I was like, what the heck is this? And guess what? You took the time to go and explain it. So anyone who's not following you, go follow, because life-changing. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I don't want to be bashing the PW, all the letters, PW, professional, PWHPA, but they're and the NHL and the NHL Network social channels. Nobody was promoting the fact that these games were going on Saturday and Sunday, and it took me 5 minutes to figure out what dates, what time, what channel. And I was like, I need to summarize this for people because people don't want to go and take the time to do this. And this is hurting the game. And this is really important. And people need to watch and they need to know what's going on. And like the name of the whole tour does not tell, would never in a million years tell you that this is like a professional women's hockey game happening, like a secret dream gap. Like I know sponsors are important. So like, yay, secret deodorant. And I don't know if Gap is like Gap clothing or if it's just like Dream Gap is the name. I don't know. I didn't look that far. But I just felt like it needed a little more explanation for the masses to just make it really clear. So I'm glad. I'm glad my reporting on Instagram helped you.
It did. It really did, and I appreciated that.
Oh my God. The only other thing, well, I have one more thing to talk about, but we need to tell everybody about our guest for this week.
So our guest this week is a former pro. His name is Brady Leavold. He is also a host of Hockey to Hell and Back. And he's also the founder of the sweatshirt that I'm wearing. For those who are not watching the video, it is Puck Support. Brady has a crazy story. He's going to dive into the story here with us later on in this episode. He can describe it way better than the two of us can. But kind of long story short, or I guess his story in a little bit of a nutshell, is he went through some hard times as a young kid. Ended up playing hockey professionally, got injured, basically got addicted to drugs, found himself on the streets of Vancouver. He overdosed multiple times. He's been in jail a few times, and he just wanted to turn his life around. And there was no better way for him to do it than to kind of come full circle and get himself back in the hockey world. And while doing it, trying to make a good impact on the hockey world as well, and helping others and making sure that those who have been lost in the hockey world are not being forgotten. Hence, Puck Support. That's what he has going on in each article of clothing or hat, whatever it is. He also includes a name for someone who has passed.
Who's on
I
yours?
have John Adams. I don't know if I can pull this up. I'm sitting kind of awkwardly, but it's John Adams
with his dates of his birth.
Yeah, with his dates. So it's really cool. Brady's doing an amazing job. Everything he's doing, anything we can do to support anybody or just the hockey world in general, we're going to do. And I think that's important for us to keep building each other up, especially during hard times. So I want to do a little bit of a disclaimer here. It's going to be a pretty heavy episode. So if you're having any issues, you may not want to listen to this one.
You might find Brady's story to be maybe disturbing or triggering because he talks about a lot of different topics that if you're feeling any kind of way, fast forward it or, do what's best for you, and do reach out if you are having any issues. Reach out to us on any of our social channels and we will connect you with Brady or the right person if you just need somebody to talk to about any hard things that you are going through. It is a very serious conversation and a heavy episode. And if you have kids around, maybe, don't let them listen to it until you do, or if you do, take the time to explain to them sort of what all of this is and what all that means with his story, because it is it's a lot. And I commend Brady for being so brave in willing to share his story and what some people might deem as mistakes that he's maybe made throughout his life and how he's overcome it, and what he's gone through to be where he is today, which is, helping people and helping the hockey community. And there's a lot to learn from his story. So if you do and you can listen to it, please enjoy the interview coming up. I don't know how I'm supposed to make a hard left turn now and talk about something completely ridiculous that went on in the NHL this weekend, but I'm going to just hard turn, guys.
All right.
Jordan Binnington, which is super fitting.
Oh my God.
Because
he's been added to my cancel list. I shouldn't say cancel because we need to cancel the cancel culture, but he's been added to my I'm gonna say my naughty list. He's right there with whatever that other guy's name is. Nick
Yeah.
Ritchie.
Nick Ritchie. Yes. Okay, so he's
Gosh.
up there now. It was super fitting that a story about Jordan Binnington came out the day that I was in St. Louis, and I was like, "Oh darn, they're away. I can't go down there and try to yell at him or get a soundbite when he walks out of the practice arena." But
I could see you just walking down there with your little tripod.
yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
I need to have a word with you, sir.
You're on Breezy's naughty list, and I want to see if you have a comment about that.
Yeah. He's like, I don't care who that is.
Yeah.
You're wasting my time. Do I look scared? Do I look worried? Do I look intimidated? No.
Exactly. So if nobody saw the clip, here's a short, brief recap of what happened during the San Jose Sharks game with the St. Louis Blues. Jordan Binnington gave up, I think, like 3 or 4 goals, and the coach pulled him to put in a different goalie, not to pull him to try to score more points. And he was not very happy about it. And on his way, I don't know, to the bench, from the bench, he freaking shoved a San Jose Sharks player. He shoved another guy, and then he shoved the San Jose Sharks goalie and was starting to like get in a fight with the goalie because he got pulled from the game, like threw a full-on toddler temper tantrum on the ice. Yeah. What are you doing?
Like, it was almost like he like went up to Carlson though and like gave him like a mini like cross check, but like it almost like a what is that? Like a what am I trying to say? I don't know. I'm trying
like
to blank.
He full on cross checked him.
But like he like tried to like make him flinch, I feel like, because Carlson was like, "What?" Were like, what's happening right now?
Did the goalie just like try to fight me for no reason?
It was like when your like little brother takes your last Rice Krispie or something. It's like, bro, mom will get more at the store. You're fine.
Right. Like, why did you just do that? There was no reason. Like, there was no reason for him to be fighting the Sharks players. Like, he just like saw red and totally lost his mind on the ice.
So he was the opposite. I mean, he was a shark. No, because he saw red, right?
Yeah.
This needs to get cut out of this. I'm not making any sense.
We're leaving it in. It's fine.
I'm delirious. This is bad.
It's okay. You were on a weekend away at Big Bear, but I saw that clip and it made me laugh. And then I thought to wonder, okay, is Binner, because he's gone on other podcasts and explained that he does this as like a persona, and that's why he like does interviews the way he does, and he's so cool, and he's like Sasha Fierce but like for hockey, and like that's his thing and nothing affects him, and he's like 20 and he's like so cool. Like, is this scene part of that? Or did he just like have a total mental break and was just so pissed off that he was pulled from the game because he probably wasn't playing very well, and just kind of like
I mean, I don't know. I saw everybody. That when I got reception today, I saw that clip and I was like, this dude is an absolute tool. Like, this is embarrassing. I would be embarrassed if I was him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
But maybe that's my unpopular hockey opinion.
That can be
on Benner.
Yeah, he just sort of looked like a goober. It wasn't like it was sort of cringy. Like,
yeah.
Did you just try to, what are you doing? You're going the wrong direction. You're skating the wrong way. Who are you fighting? What's wrong with you? Like, speaking of the wrong way, I have to admit that sometimes we do things the wrong way. On my cross country drive, I went to go pick up dinner one night, and it was on a service road, and I pulled in, I picked up my food, and I went to pull out, and there was no sign. Like, normally there's a sign that says like one way, right? Like,
right, yeah.
And you're clearly like on a service road, but there's 2 lanes. So I turn left, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Something about this doesn't feel right. I'm like, I think this is a one way and I'm driving the wrong way down the one way road. And then I saw a car and I quickly turned left into a parking lot and I was like, motherfucker, I just drove down the one way down the wrong road in the service road. Luckily there weren't like a lot of cars coming and the light was red, but like that happened. So
I think everyone does it. I have done that plenty of times by accident.
yeah, it was on accident and there was no sign.
There's no signs, and I've done it. I think the worst time was in downtown LA, which
Oh
is the
yeah.
worst. If anyone ever goes to downtown, just don't drive. Just don't drive. Better yet, you don't even want to go downtown. It's not even that fun. But don't drive. I did it after a concert and it was terrifying. I was lost. I was like, I don't even know where to go. Where am I? I'm not even going the right way. Like, we're doomed. I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna like park.
Right.
Just in the middle of the road. I'm just gonna park. I'm scared. I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, it was like slightly terrifying. And as I was moving forward, I was like, this is definitely I'm not supposed to be driving this way.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Post more signs. Thank you, Texas. I think that's where
Yeah,
I was. I don't know where I was, but yes. Downtown LA should have more signs as well. Like it should like very clearly say like one way. Like a lot of the streets in downtown LA are not marked, and I have to go like you like inch forward to like
yeah.
kind of look at where the cars are parked.
It's
And
like an unwritten rule. It's like, well, you know that these are one-way streets and you can't go. And it's like, how do I know? Oh, well, like 6th Street is 11 is, up and 9th Street's down. It's like, that's not how it goes, by the way. Please don't take my word for
no,
that. But it's literally like that. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to know that 6 is up and 9th is down? Like, that makes no sense. Well,
no,
yes, it does. It's like, no, it doesn't.
mm-mm,
Not at all.
no.
And I don't drive this enough.
So maybe Benner just needed a sign to point him in the right direction, and maybe he got confused.
Sure.
Or
Sure.
he's just a tool on Breezy's naughty list.
He's just a tool. And not a good one. Not a useful tool either.
Like a useful tool is like an electric screwdriver, I think.
Or just a screwdriver.
Yes.
Or a tape measure. Those
Tape
are always
measure.
nice. Those are always needed.
Yeah.
Other than that, whatever. Yeah. We're going down the wrong street right now. We just let's bring it back. What are we doing?
Our podcast is proud to be on the Hockey Podcast Network, and the network is home to many other incredible podcasts, including this one.
He's my brother Mike.
He's my brother Matt.
And we are the Brothers of Discussion, hosting Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas about your Detroit Red Wings finally have a home.
In a season mired in tragedy and despair, we are here to be your audible Earl Grey, to bring joy, placidity, and perspective to one of the roughest eras in Red Wing history. We honor the past, find the positives in the present, I swear they're there, and paint the picture of what's to come in the Winged Wheels future. Paul Woods here on the radio broadcast, your Detroit Red Wings, and I'm going to play games like Who's That? Come on. Where Matt has to try and guess quotes pulled right out of context for Jeff Blashill, and we got to figure out who that Red Wing is.
Every episode, we put ourselves in the legendary shoes of Steve Yzerman and play Be the GM, finding ways to ice a competitive team while accumulating assets for the franchise's future. We also shoot the breeze. Some of the great local and national voices in Red Wings hockey, including Ken Kell and Keith Gave, and Greg Wyshynski and Ryan Lambert.
Check us out every Monday and Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts.
And check us out live every Wednesday and Sunday for Red Wings reactions and live conversations with you on our YouTube channel, The Brothers of Discussion.
Welcome to the house, former pro hockey player Brady Leavold. His story is a harrowing one of how he went from playing professional hockey to shooting heroin and how he is now back and in recovery and actually really helping the hockey community. There is a disclaimer that we are going to say because some listeners may find Brady's story to be a little bit disturbing, as he's going to detail stuff about sexual abuse, graphic drug use, incarceration, and suicide. So this is the time to tune off or tune out or have your finger on the fast forward button, and to put the kids away. We are very grateful that Brady is alive today to be able to tell this recovery story and how hockey has saved his life not once but twice. And you're going to hear how Brady is helping others with the Puck Support Foundation, which we talked about earlier, and his podcast, Hockey to Hell and Back. So please enjoy this conversation with Brady, and I hope you take something really wonderful away from this conversation. Tell everybody who you are.
Well, no, thanks for having me. And I always love the opportunity to hop on any podcast. And obviously I've been following you guys for a little bit now, and being able to connect with, it's interesting being on the other side of, having females on the other side. I think it's really cool. And I commend you guys for doing that, and you're doing a great job. But, I'm originally from Port Coquitlam. I always just say Vancouver because it's easier. People don't know where Port Coquitlam is. But like any kid in Canada, I had the dream of playing professional hockey. And, I had some things happen to me when I was young, really unfortunate things. I was sexually abused at 5 and then again at 6. And and my parents had just recently divorced. So hockey was essentially my outlet for as long as I could remember, and it worked. And, if there was no ice, it was me in the driveway with a stick in my hand and pretending to have friends, even if they weren't there. I was, commentating for myself, the whole nines. And I loved it. I loved hockey, and it just got me out of all of that terrible hurt and pain that I was carrying around. And I never really afforded myself the chance and had the confidence to ever believe in myself, even on the ice. I think even at a young age, I would have had a lot more opportunity if I would have, had that confidence and been able to share some of the things that were going on with me. As we are now learning more of, hockey is it's very mental. I mean, it's very physical, but the mental side of it is equally as important. And eventually, though, through all that hard work and passion to get out of myself and my horror, my nightmare, hockey provided me a great opportunity by making the Western Hockey League, and I played with Swift Current Broncos. And my junior career was crazy. I mean, I did everything wrong, from getting a girl pregnant to partying to quitting the team to you name it. I did it. And I just, my life kind of fell apart at different times through junior hockey. And, but my last year was great. I got traded to Kelowna, played online with Jamie Benn, captain of Dallas Stars. And, it was great. Played with Tyler Myers is on that team, Tyson Berry, Luke Shen, bunch of guys. We had a great team, and ended up signing with the Lightning. And unfortunately, you'd think it'd be a dream come true. But by that time in my life, I started to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. And I slowly started to get away from, using hockey as my outlet. And now, is primarily drugs. I mean, drinking, of course, in the beginning, but it just wasn't cutting it for me anymore. And heading into my first year pro, you think you'd be training and preparing for this upcoming season. And I was going to Lightning camp. Steve Stamkos had just been drafted first overall. And it was a lot of excitement around that. But I didn't train. I was using pretty heavily that summer, and I ended up going to camp. And I mean, I think I did horrible. But I ended up, making the American League team. 4 games into the season, I blew my knee out, and they prescribed me Oxycontin, and that's a game changer. I mean, we can decipher through, a drug is a drug is a drug. But when you get hooked on something with that power of that magnitude, where it literally takes over your body and you need it just to get out of bed in the morning, it becomes a whole nother nightmare. So, I mean, my pro career got derailed very early. And And, shortly after that, I found myself addicted to heroin and fentanyl and homeless on the streets in Vancouver, and ended up doing 3 years in jail. And recently I just celebrated a year. It's been a year clean off all of the hard stuff. I have to be very careful how I say that, because up until very recently, I'm talking openly, I used cannabis as a way to, which is it's actually more common in the hockey world now than ever before. And I've, now I'm a month without using cannabis too, so it's great. But it was a long road to get here, and I didn't really have any idea of what I was going to do. I was multiple suicide attempts, over 10 overdoses where I should have, I shouldn't be here talking to you guys. And somehow, some way, I decided to start a podcast just coming up on a year ago. And, the hockey community being what it is, they really rallied behind me. And for that, I'm so grateful, and it saved my life. But, I know I'm kind of taking over, not letting you speak, but before we go any further, like, as great as it was for me, to be feeling this way and to be feeling better and sharing my story, I soon realized that, I was not the only one, and I'm actually one of the lucky ones. I uncovered a lot of just similar stories, and so close to the heart, where I found out my roommate from my time in the American Hockey League, my short time, actually passed away from a fentanyl overdose in 2017. And it was kind of in that moment that I decided, I was like, hey, well, you know what, something needs to be done here. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do this. And if I have to do it on my own to begin with, well, then guess what? I'm going to do it. And so I started something called Puck Support. You can see the hoodie, and I have a hat on. I got, we got tons of stuff. We have a store, and it originally started as a not-profit, which it still is. We're trending in that direction. It's a lot of steps to get where we want to go. But, I kind of worked back, like, instead of waiting for everything to be perfect, I was like, because I started to realize there's girls struggling right now. We're losing people all the time. And I was like, I can't wait for things to be perfect. I have to do something. And again, the hockey community rallied behind me, and we have a ton of great support. I actually have a meeting with the NHL coming up very soon. Yeah, it's really cool. I can speak about that. And the NHL PA, which is exciting. I don't have any expectations going into it, but the fact that they're noticing, I think we're in that time now where, enough is enough, and people are opening up to it. So that's the Cole's Notes version, but I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of it.
You've lived like 9 lives, you've got stories upon stories, and there's so many things we can talk about here with what you've experienced. So I think I'm not really sure where we should start based on everything you said. I think, first of all, if anybody is resonating with anything you've said, obviously reach out for help or support, right? If you're experiencing any of the things that Brady just talked about, obviously there is help, and there are things and resources out there, including Brady and Puck Support and everything like that. But I guess take us through the mental side of where you were at after, playing junior and getting into the NHL and all of that. Where were you at mentally with dealing with your past trauma and the drugs, and then managing somehow to still at least attempt to perform, to play, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, I wasn't in a good way, put it that way. I certainly was not in a good way at all. And there's enough pressure. There's enough pressure when you're talking professional hockey, even major junior hockey, and it filters right down into minor hockey. Hockey is it's a pressure cooker. And I always felt that anxiety, and like I told you before, I just never felt that I really belonged. Even if I was scoring goals and everything else, I would have this negative self-talk, like, you don't believe it, you don't deserve it. All these guys are better than you. You shouldn't even be playing. And I never, speaking on the trauma side of it, I never told anybody till I was 26. I'm 33 now. And it was a long road to get there. And it was sort of like way that I explain it is, and I talked about it. I just had Curtis Gabriel on the podcast. I know he's a friend of your guys' as well, and such a great guy. And the way that we talked about things is this. It's like, certainly, inside the dressing room, but also everywhere in the world. I mean, we talk about like language in the dressing room and on the schoolyard and these kind of things. And, when at a young age, I kind of realized how, judgments and labels were getting, passed on to people, whether they were true or not. And, I know of several individuals I went to school with that, they'd be called homophobic slurs or whatever, regardless if they were true or not, but it stayed with them for their entire time in school. And they were just labeled as this. And so like, when I saw that happening, I was like, there's no way, there's not a chance I'm ever telling anybody, because, and then you get into the hockey dressing room, and I fought a lot, and, I'm a pretty tough guy, but I always pretended to be way tougher than I ever was. I'm actually I'm a softie. I cry all the time. I can't even watch Extreme Makeover Home Edition without crying. Me and my mom called the Cry Show. I'll watch like The Voice or American.
For sure.
Yeah. Like all those shows. I'm just so happy, but I'm crying because I'm usually happy for people and stuff. But like, so just always pretending to be somebody I wasn't. And, to be honest with you guys, I never felt like it goes back, like I never felt like I belonged, but I never felt like I was like the rest of the guys. It was like, and what I'm soon realizing is that, a lot of us were just kind of going through the same thing, trying to be something we're not, and putting on all these different masks. So I'm not saying I'm special in any way, but like, just trying to live up to that hockey player persona, and, I think that had a big reason with why I, just didn't really feel like I fit in. I was like, I felt different. I obviously because of what happened to me, but, I don't know. There's a lot of layers there, but,
let me ask you this. Did you ever feel like when you were playing hockey at any point and you were struggling with any of the things you were, right? Did anybody reach out to you or try to help you or lend a hand and like talk us through that? Because I'm sure people listening are going, well, didn't his coach say something? Or what about his friends? Like, were they saying, hey, Brady, like, what's up? How can we help you? But I think you need to help the audience understand, for people who don't know what it's like to have an addiction and to have some trauma like that you are just sort of like, if you're not willing to recognize it, then there's no way to help you. But if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. And, as soon as you asked that, I think back to, my rookie year in Swift Current. And just because I was doing a podcast earlier, I have this here. I know it may not be video, but I won Rookie of the Year for the Swift Current Broncos. And like that year I left for like 3 weeks on what would now be a mental health leave. And the following year I ended up quitting the team 7 games into the season because of everything that was going on. But, that year, they brought, a sports psychologist came in, and we got to speak with him very briefly. I mean, he's there for a weekend or whatever. And when you're talking junior hockey, I mean, there's, money issues or whatever, depending on what team you're playing on. I mean, in the WHL, you're really well taken care of. It's a mini NHL, but still, like, it comes back to the point where, at that time I was still not ready to tell anybody. And because I was thinking like, I was so suicidal. Like I was calling my dad being like, Dad, if I don't leave here, I'm going to kill myself. And that's it. And I couldn't really like get the courage to tell him why. And, he always just assumed it was because of a girlfriend or this or that, which maybe tied into it a little bit. But, actually, if you want to know the truth, like, when I came back from that little break, my 17-year-old year, like the team was so hard on me. Like the guys were like, some of the guys were horrible to me. Like gave me the nickname Baby. They're like, kept going, go home, baby, go home. So it's like, whoa, like, then it's like you start to feel like you're not part of the team because you can't tell them what's really going on. And I mean, in retrospect, maybe I should have, like, I wish I would have told somebody, but when you're just trying to fit in a group like that of alpha males and, especially as a rookie, you're just scared to make a bad pass in practice, let alone actually let anybody tell anybody what's really going on. And because it's such a competitive environment. I mean, if you're not playing well, the next guy next to you is going to take your spot in the lineup. So you're trying to do anything you can to stay in there. And, I had different coaches at different times try to pull me aside and say, hey, what's going on or whatever. But getting back to what you said, it's like, if you're not, willing to share those experiences, like, I mean, I wouldn't say you're wasting everybody's time, but essentially you are, because I always tell everybody, like, you get back to addiction or whatever, if you're not willing to be completely honest, like I'm talking brutally honest. And I thought I was honest for a long time. I'd done recovery since I was 21. That's 12 years. And just for the first time, I hit a year, like after 12 years, or 11. And then this last 12th year, it's been a year. And so like, I always thought, okay, yeah, I'm being honest. But there's always little reservations. Okay, I'll tell them this, but I'm not going to tell them that, and until I was able to, share freely and, my story, like I'm so brutally honest now, like to the point where people are like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell it like it is because I need to. And I don't encourage people to do it always on live videos or podcasts like I do, but that's what's worked for me, because I knew that as soon as I put myself out there, it was like, well, now you can't lie, because the second you lie, you're going to lose any credibility, and people who are looking to you for support, people you're helping, and, your own support systems are all going to fall out from under you because they're going to see that you're being phony. And so it hasn't been a smooth transition. Like this year hasn't been like, all just going to the top. I mean, I still struggle every single day at different times with different things. I just don't struggle with using drugs anymore, but you get rid of the drugs, well, you still have all your other issues going on. And so, I think there's a huge gap in the hockey world between getting, the support that we need, that some of us need, and the stigma behind it. I mean, I think back again to that rookie year where like I come home from that and the team kind of speculated why I left and different things, but nobody really knew what was going on with me. But still, the way that I was like, accepted back was not very good. It didn't make me feel good. And I mean, I'm not blaming them. I mean, it's a team. You're supposed to be a team guy and team first. And it's like, well, you can't be team first if you're not taking care of yourself first. You can't take care of anything else if you're not taking care of yourself. Right. And it's not, I used to look at that as selfish all the time, but I mean, it just comes back to looking out for yourself and doing what's right for you. And I wasn't able to do that until very recently.
Right. I mean, what would you say? I know you said that the league in general needs to work on being able to help. What advice would you give to either, a parent, a teammate, a player, or even like a coaching staff or anybody if you see someone struggling, like what would you, having the experience, like how would you say to approach them to try to get help?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I wish I had more of the exact answers for that so that we could really, really start to help people. But, I always say and I've been saying this in different podcasts and videos that I do, it's like, if you're a coach or you're a parent, like, especially a coach with COVID going on and everything else, and a lot of the rinks up here, like hockey shut down completely up here in Canada and for the kids. And what I've noticed is that, like, when guys retire from hockey, a lot of them struggle. Like it's very well documented. And if they don't have something to go into right away that gives them that purpose and that meaning, they struggle. Well, what we're seeing now is that it's filtering down into these kids that shouldn't be having to experience that because they don't have that outlet, that team, whatever it is. And so I always tell these coaches, like, now, like, if you're a coach, like, check in with your kids and don't just check in with, like, a couple of them. Make sure that you're treating them all the same and giving them the same opportunities. And I don't mean that ice time. I mean opportunities within the dressing room to speak up and to feel part of. And I mean, if you want to talk like junior and especially like junior hockey, like, you have to build that culture in the dressing room where, if there's guys that aren't, being supportive on and off the ice of the teammates, will get rid of them, because it's, at the end of the day, hockey's it's a sport. It's really a business when you get to a certain level. But when you take that gear off, we're all humans, and that really should be the most important focus, I believe. And as far as kids go that are struggling, the sooner that you let that stuff go, in the right setting. I mean, you need to know that you trust people and to have those supports in place. And on the other side of that, if you if you wait for the timing to be perfect, you know, it's never going to be perfect because it's always going to hurt. It's always going to be uncomfortable. It's always going to be hard. Yeah. But being able to, you know, let that go and realize that really you're not alone, because there's always somebody that, you know, has gone through something similar or the same, very much the same. And what people don't realize, at least I didn't, I can only speak for myself, is how understanding those people that really care are. So, you know, I think it's dangerous for a kid to come out and say different things in junior, but we're seeing some pretty amazing things. Like I had Yannick Duplessis on my podcast. I'm not sure if you know of his story, but he's the first openly gay junior hockey player. And you know, he, before he even made the Quebec Major Junior League, he came out gay at 17. And so like that to me is like, wow, like that kid had balls, like, but he understood that it was that, you know, that fear and anxiety of people finding out and whatever, when he was just trying to be himself. Well, now he's on the other side of it. And sure, there's not everybody's been supportive because we live in a judgmental world. Not everybody is going to be, but to be able to filter out those people and I mean, the love that the kid is getting is just amazing. And I mean, it goes on so many different levels where, like, you know, if somebody has been sexually abused, like I was, I mean, you know, they can come talk to me. I make myself available for everybody, but I had trailblazers ahead of me, like Theron Fleury's a friend of mine. Sheldon Kennedy's a friend of mine, like guys that I had on my podcast super early and that I'm able to like still to this day call and be like, hey, you know, like this is what's going on for me. And so, you know, being able to find those people. And for me, those people were, because I, you know, as a hockey player, being able to see another hockey player walk in those shoes, it made it a lot easier for me. So I think the more guys that come out and share their stories, whether it's addiction, mental health, sexual abuse, whether they're coming out openly gay, which we're still waiting to see in the NHL. Yeah. Curtis and I talked about it. You know, there's at least one, probably 10 in the NHL, and we're waiting for that day. And I understand why they're scared to come out. Like, I get it. Like, I totally understand. Like, I couldn't even share like anything with them because I felt so scared of being judged by the coaches. And
and if you look at the examples of people, let me try that again. If you look at the examples of professional athletes like in the NFL who have come out and when they are active on a team, they're no longer in the league. So there aren't any good examples out there for the NHL players either. I didn't mean to cut you off, and I know Breezy has another question. But like really the example is not out there as far as the men side of things go. And we were talking also, since you're talking about Curtis Gabriel, like the women's side is so much more ahead with like being able to be openly gay and it to not be an issue. It's now we have to like go backwards and change these old systems and these old beliefs in the male side.
Yeah. And before she hops in here, I mean, like, I believe we will get there. Like I'm a firm believer, maybe not even in my lifetime, but we will get there. And the reason being is because I'll be honest, hockey is an old boys club. You look at the NHL, the major junior leagues, all of it. It's all these older guys that are, you know, it's maybe not even their fault. I'm not judging them, but it's the way they were raised or they were brought up, and these different, you know, judgments that they have, that they don't know how to, you know, make any sense of it. And then the worst part of it all maybe is that they're not willing to see, you know, the other side of it. And that's where I have a problem with it all. And
right. They see it as like, it's going to be a distraction to the game and like that whole sort of aspect. And that hockey is very much, you know, it's the team. It's not I did this in the game. It's we did this in the game. And I think they're just so afraid of that changing.
It's funny how they always say it's like it's always the team first in the sport, and like they don't want distractions or anything like that. But in order for people to grow the sport, like you have to make it more on a personal level. So I don't understand why they're always like, no distractions, but like distractions could be good to some extent.
Yeah. And just to touch on that in a sec, but like if you think back, you know, when you spoke to Curtis Gabriel, and I just spoke to him too, and I had some time to reflect on it before him coming on, and then again while I was speaking with him. And if people actually comprehend like what he's doing, being not a full-time NHL guy, he's in and out of the lineup. He's played one game this year, and I hope to see him in the lineup more. I believe he deserves to be there. And, but it'd be different if, Ovechkin or McDavid were doing what he was doing, because they could just show up to the rink every day and be like, I got my 10-year contract with my millions coming in, and they're not, it would be easier for them to do it. And so when I see a guy like Curtis doing what he's doing, it's like, wow, like he's really putting a lot on the line for something he believes in. And that's why he's one of the best people I think out there for doing what he's doing. It's simply amazing. And, he talked a lot about it, is where like, maybe we do need to, and we need to make it on a more personal level, because if we're thinking about is hockey and that's all we're seeing, well, you're going to start to see these guys' mental health deteriorate even faster. They need to be able to be themselves and to let the people around them or the world, whoever they decide to share it with, let them know what's going on. And I mean, it's a real shame. It's a real shame that we're kind of where we are. And I believe that we're better than we were 5 years ago, and certainly 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I mean, there's so much work to be done, and it's guys like Curtis that, are, to me, maybe the most inspirational man in the NHL right now.
And I'll take it to the devil's advocate, and then I know Breezy has another question, because like if you look at something like the NBA, where you've got these huge personalities that are sharing everything, right? Like they're not afraid, like they're dating Kardashians and they're on reality shows. Like we don't want that. Like I understand, like I don't want that. Like I don't want like, no, I want to know you, and I want you to be able to feel comfortable sharing your story on social media and showing us the weird quirks that you have, or even if it's something as simple as that. We don't even get that. We get pictures of babies and kids, and like not a lot of players are willing to like push that boundary like Curtis is. So, I mean, I understand, and I don't want it to go that far down, like of like we're on E-News and stuff like that with our NHL players, because I think there is still something sacred about that team mentality that keeps the game still really powerful, and the players still humble to some degree. But like, I do agree 100% with what you're saying, that we need to see more of them, because if we don't, with the way that this next generation is coming in, the sport is going to die off from a professional side, because kids today are so used to seeing like, what's your TikTok? And like, they want to see Connor McDavid on TikTok. Not that I'm advocating for that, but like, we need to have some balance with it. And I think the hard and fast rule with the NHL is just no, just a no. It's just no. So I understand the dilemma, but we need more people like Curtis who are active, that are willing to just put themselves out. And Curtis isn't doing anything by any means that would be like, or at least I think that way, because I'm, we're pro, LGBTQ plus and being inclusive. So it's like, I guess that to me is super normal that he would rock pride tape, right? But for some people that might be very challenging to see. So anyway, I don't know what I was trying to make.
And it shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be.
Right.
It really shouldn't be. It should be so... I don't know, like when on the show, I told Curtis is sending me a box of it. I told him I swore up and down now that I'm gonna have it on my stick for the rest of the time. I mean that. And it's like, not because I'm trying to copy him or anything. It's because I need, maybe he's in the NHL, but I'm coaching kids, and people will be like, well, are you gay, Brady? Well, no, I'm not. But guess what? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, because, these are my friends. These are people that, deserve to be loved. And, I think it goes back to like, there's so many different things where, okay, well, one night we're going to do this, and one day we're going to talk about this. And it's like, okay, well, what about the other 364 days in a year? Like, I'm like, it's all great. And but it's really just smoke and mirrors to me. It's like, well, what are we really doing on a daily basis to make sure that we're keeping people accountable, keeping, the different leagues accountable, whatever, that's a huge piece on that is education. Like, what are the powers that be that have a huge voice in all sports really, but let's say hockey, what are they doing, to educate the next generation so that we can have a smoother transition into this? And
isn't that answer nothing?
Yeah.
Is the answer to that nothing? Like what's being done? It's like that right therein lies the issue, like
Exactly.
You're saying with like the coaches need to get to the kids who are in the young, not that they have to go all like, let me explain what a gay man is to you, but like just sort of making it not a big deal. But like, is that happening? Where's the structure? Where's the training coming from? And like, where does that come from top down from like an NHL or USA hockey? We're not like, I'm not bashing them, but like, this is where it's got to come.
Yeah. And like I know for Hockey Canada,
and sorry, wait, let me just say this. Not all coaches are not doing this. Like there are a lot that are, it's just not as public.
Yeah. And again, you don't want to know what it goes back to. It goes back to that individuals about the effect, their careers, they're in today's world or 5-10 years down, because we live in this crazy society that you said something when you were 8 years old, fired at 35, and it's like, well, people grow and they change. And if people want to judge me on all the stuff I've done, like, I might as well just go jump off a bridge because everyone's going to hate me, like seriously. And so, I mean, this is the problem I'm having is like, even with doing my podcast is like, I've talked to I've had a lot of great guests, and I'm so grateful for all their friendships and everything. But it's when I get guys like Curtis on, or even last night I had Kevin Rain on, where they're willing to talk about, things that are going on. I get some guys on that they're very reluctant to open up because they might be worrying about getting that, TV job on ESPN or TSN or whatever. And they're scared to be able to be themselves. And you talk about reality shows, like, do we really get to see the real people in those shows either? Like they're just pretending to be something they're not too. So, I mean, but I will agree with you, Ray, that definitely no, I like the Hockey Wives show. I'll give them that. I don't know if you've seen that. That's not a bad show. I can deal with that, because at least they're a little bit, ritzy and stuck up in some ways, but hell, whatever, that's fine. But, they're not too over the top dramatic and everything else. And I wish I had more answers for everybody. And, it just goes back to like, what can we do? Depending on what our roles are on a daily basis. If we're parents, what are those conversations we're having with our kids when they come home from school? Are we keeping them accountable? Digging a little bit deeper instead of just saying, how was your day? Well, tell me one nice thing you did for somebody today. Like, did you see anybody getting picked on? How did you handle it? How did you feel about it? Like, teaching your kids to stand up, not only for themselves, but for those that can't stand up for themselves. And I mean, that's something as a parent that I drive home hard, to my kids, even though they're really young. And it's like, and I know a lot of parents are doing this, but I mean, if we don't keep that accountability, and it's not like, you almost have to like, not brainwash the kids, but like keep reminding them, like show them that it's important, and like build their character right from a young age. And if you really want to think about it, like if you want to be a pro hockey player, I mean, you start developing those little characteristics, well, you're going to mold into a great person, which will be a great teammate, a great leader, somebody that the scouts will want to have on their team. And like I tell all the kids, if I coach them or whatever, it's like, no matter where you are, and I always use hockey rinks, but it doesn't matter. Like if you're playing, if you're practicing, you have no idea who might be in that rink. Like the coach from the other team that you're playing tonight when you're 12 years old. Well, guess what? Maybe in 5 years, he's going to be coaching in major junior or wherever. And, then he sees you in the lobby after the game and you throw garbage on the ground, or you're swearing, or you slam a door in someone's face, or you're yelling at your parents, or whatever it is. It's like, people remember that kind of stuff. So like, I always tell everybody, it's like, you're always representing yourself, but not just yourself, your family. If you're on a team, you're representing your team and your community. And, trying to get these kids to stop and think about what they're doing. And especially when you want to talk about like social media, I mean, it's that's the very first thing people go to. Now you talk to NHL scouts, you know where they go when they want to look at a guy, boom, what's on his social media. And then they start digging a little bit deeper. So, I mean, you can fake it kind of, but you really, as a mentor, a parent, you need to get to the root of it at a young age and really show, because unless you're showing, you don't know. You don't know if you don't know, right? You can't just figure stuff out all the time. And a lot lies on parents. I truly believe that, a product of your environment and different things. So any parents listening, make your kids accountable, give them consequences if they deserve it. I'm not saying beat them or anything like that, but monitoring their social media, monitoring their friendships. I mean, some parents are like, well, I want to give my kids freedom and this and that. Well, really? Like, I had way too much freedom. And my dad was a single dad. He was probably just exhausted and annoyed with me. So he just let me do whatever I want most of the time. And I was a pretty good kid. I will say I was a pretty good kid. But I mean, I've been dealing a lot with bullies lately, like online bullies, like where I've had to literally step in and my Instagram page got shut down because of it. Get this. So I had a kid who was being bullied in a group chat, body shamed and everything else in this hockey player group chat. Like, these are like little junior influencers on Instagram, the ambassadors of this company. They all have this group chat and they brought me into it. And but he called me. He's like driving around because he's like 18. He just turned 18. And all these kids are like 15 in the chat, 16, 17, 18. And he's driving around and he's like in tears and he's like, I'm done. Like, da, da, da. He's like telling me he's like seriously going to take his own life. And I had to talk him through it. I'm like, what's going on? And he sent me the pictures of the group chat. And I was like, no, this is not happening. Like, so I ended up going on Instagram. I called the kid out on a live video and whatever. I put it right on him. And, I ended up taking it down. But the kid never even apologized. I had to actually contact the companies he was sponsored by, which he's now been removed from, because I had to. I was like, you know what? This kid needs consequences. You can't treat people like that. And then so him and his little bully buddies, they reported my Instagram page. I got kicked off. I didn't even do anything, and I can't get my page back, but it's all right. I got a new name that's better anyways. But it goes back, and that's not the only one. And then like 2 days later, another totally different set of kids and different issues, and it's still going on. And it's like, what? Like, I understand like kids will be kids and everything else, but like, it's got to come from within the family dynamic, the teachers, the coaches. And it comes back to what kind of setting, like what are the topics of conversation you're having, even if you're a teacher in the classroom? How much are you focusing on, schoolwork, and balancing it with life skills and being a good person? I think we miss that. Like, we get so caught up in all the crap where people are just trying to impress everybody all the time. I know I did. Like, I always did. And I don't know. I wish I had more answers for everybody, but it's got to come within.
Well, it's got to come within yourself, right? Like, first, like if you're a parent who hasn't dealt with their own issues or traumas or frustrations or own personal growth things, they're not going to be able to help their kids, and then the cycle continues. So go ahead.
No, I mean, I think parents too also put their kids in sports to help them get through whatever they're going through. But when you have social media, I mean, I feel like just hearing Brady's story, like a locker room is just as bad as social media sometimes. I mean, you're getting bullied online in the locker room. These guys are your friends. You're supposed to be able to open up with them, play with them, bond with them. But if you're getting bullied, like, then you're going to be, I mean, you're basically getting torn to shreds. And this should be like a safe place. And hockey, I mean, we always talk about how hockey's even a better sport than other sports, just based off of, the connections that people are able to get, and the players, they seem more accessible and whatnot. But it's tough to hear stories like this, obviously, where you want it to be all inclusive and whatnot, but it's just not quite there yet.
And that's to the positive of hockey, right? Like, there is the team mentality. There is the team, like, team first, which can be a really powerful thing, especially in these situations of like being bullied online, like that's where the captain of, let's just hypothetically say that kid's, you want the captain of the team to step into that group chat and say like, hey man, we're not about this, so like knock it the fuck off, or whatever that is. Like, and to Brady's point of like, that's where the parents and the teachers and the coaches have to give these kids the confidence and the power to be able to be willing to stand up for themselves and for other people. And that applies to us and our own personal lives too, and the parents themselves. Like, it takes courage and it's scary. And I'm sure it was scary as fuck for you, Brady, to come out and tell any and all of your story in the beginning, but you're that much better off for it, and you're helping that many more people. So just people knowing that there is a good that will come from being brave and bold and all that. Breezy, were you going to ask something else like 20 minutes ago?
Well, I wanted to loop it back because I know that Brady had said that hockey's a physical sport, but it's more mental than anything. And I kind of wanted to loop in you coming out of addiction, having that mentality of a hockey player and being tough. And like, I mean, I feel like hockey players are trained more on their mental aspect than they are physically sometimes, because it's a very mental game, as you said. Would you say having the hockey mentality helped push you through to get sober and to get past your addiction?
You know what? I think at different times, especially early in recovery, like when you come off opiates, I mean, there's no two ways about it. It hurts. Like you can't even put into words. It's the worst feeling, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone through it. People wouldn't believe me if I told you. And like, I was bad. Like I was an intravenous drug user. Like I was bad. Like I was like the worst of the worst. And I think early on in recovery where, I would just tell myself, like I'd turn that little switch on, that little competitive switch in my brain that a lot of hockey players, athletes have. I think that you develop as a kid getting to play the game. And I feel very lucky that I was afforded the opportunity, because a lot of people aren't. And I often wonder how many, Connor McDavids are out there that'll never get the chance because it's so expensive. And that's something we're looking into to be able to help. There's a lot of great organizations doing it already, but I feel like there's always more that can be done. But yeah, certainly I think for a long time, it helped. But on the other side of that, to be honest, I think through my addiction, I started to utilize some of these things maybe in almost a negative way where, I was very quick tempered my whole life after all that stuff happened to me. And I would always get really pissed off if someone did something to my teammates. That's why I fought so much. It was never because anybody did anything to me. It was when people do stuff to my teammates, my friends, my family. And so when I went into that life of addiction, I ended up getting myself into more trouble because I was trained to like punch now and think later. And you can't do that on the street. You know what I mean? You can't, you do that. You could fight in hockey. You do that anywhere else. That's called assault. You know what I mean? You can't. So, I'm lucky that I didn't get, I'll be honest, like I was shot at once. I've been stabbed. Like that's the life that I lived. And like, a lot of it to do was where I was sticking my nose where I probably shouldn't have, because I thought, these are my friends. I got to stick up for them. This is my team, even though it was an addiction, whatever it is. And, so I think as a mental side of hockey and the way that I was trained as a hockey player to kind of react so quickly, it was almost dangerous for me at times, but, having to learn to, push through when you don't want to, whether it be in a bag skate or practice, the coach is telling you to skate and it's like, what are you going to say? No, like you better find a way to like get through this. And, I think we all develop different tactics to get through it. And yeah, I mean, there's no question that I've used that, to get out the other side and at different times. And, but I'll tell you what, though, I got tired. There was a period of time there where I just gave up and I lost that competitiveness for anything. And I just gave up and gave my life to my addiction, obviously being homeless for almost a year. And like, yeah, it was bad. Like it kind of wore off where I kept getting that little like, okay, you're a fighter. You can get through this. And I tried so many times and I'd fail. And I just got tired until I was like, you know what? I can't, like, I can't beat this. This has got me. And I'm sick of going to rehab. I'm sick of trying to withdraw off this garbage. This is my life, and let's just roll with it. And so I started to believe that, you know, this is what I deserved, in and out of jail and different things, and starting to do a lot of things that are unimaginable, that I
So
still.
how did you flip that thinking though? Like
Yeah.
after you hit that bottom, what was the
So-
defining moment to make a change and then to flip? Was it the roommate that you said that in junior?
Well, I think honestly, if I look back, to when, like when I changed and came out the other side, like this time, is that what you're asking? Like what,
Yeah.
like, how did I
Like
find that again?
what was like you're describing these really hard thoughts and feelings that I'm sure a lot of people have felt, or if they've experienced something similar to you. So to get to that rock bottom, and that looks different for different people, but we've all had. Yeah. So like what were when you were like, okay, fuck this shit, I'm not gonna let it take over my life, I'm gonna make a change, and I'm gonna get off the street and not be homeless and do something about it. Like,
Well,
what
I wish
was that?
I wish I could tell you that's the way it went, but I always say I got arrested, but I got rescued, and I got rescued by the police and thrown in jail for 2 years at one time. I got out and went right back to it and ended up in jail for another year. And while I was in there that time, and this was, I've been out for like a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And so it's pretty new, right? Like it's all pretty new. But I think, what a big change for me, and I don't speak about it a lot. I was in jail and had, seriously can't go anywhere. Like you're locked in there. And I tried everything, so I started to, I think at this time, the last time I was in there, it was like, around the 3 or 4 month mark of being in there. Once a week, this Bible cart would come by with all these different scriptures and different things. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to try this. Like, I got nothing else to do, and decided to start seeing a chaplain once a week. And it wasn't like I was, going to go totally like rah. I'm going to be a church goer guy, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's something to it all. I still do. But that really was a big change for me. I started to read a lot more, started to open my heart, my eyes to what good really looks like, what a good person really looks like, and started to realize that really is me, and that's who I've always wanted to be. Is naturally, I'm a really caring, kind, giving person, really generous, and getting back to that and being able to be like, you know what, like I'm not going to try to be somebody to impress anybody else anymore. I'm not going to, I'm just going to be me. And if people like me, they like me. If they don't, they don't. And, so a lot of it to do is, I completed every single Bible study while I was in there, and read the Bible, and started to pray a lot, started to journal a lot. And when I got out, I'll be honest, I went back and I relapsed very quickly. But about a month after that, I was actually, it's crazy, long story short, but like I had gone out one night to go do nothing good, put it that way. And I was literally walking down this like street, like that's like, it's like a highway in the middle of nowhere, and very few streetlights. And, I think at this point I was like 2.5 weeks clean. Like I'm talking like, this is almost a year ago to the day, like today, like, you know what I mean? Like give or take, because I just celebrated a year. So like I was like 2.5 weeks clean. So like a year ago today. And I decided to go out, and I was clean at the time. Right. So, but I was recently clean, but I was still in that mentality of like, oh, like, I was still doing all that bad stuff, whatever. And started to walk down this highway to go do whatever. And all of a sudden this like overwhelming sensation came out over me. And this is no lie. Like there's so many stars in the sky. I'm up here in Muskoka, Ontario. And I'm just like, started talking to myself. I'm like, really? You're going to go do that right now? Like and it was like, I was talking to myself, but it wasn't me. And it was like this like 3-4 minute conversation going back and forth. And people would probably think I'm nuts if they saw it. And all of a sudden, you know, I was like, said to myself, I'm like, you're going to turn around, you're going to go home, you're going to, you know, you're going to get your shit together. Like, end of story. Like, I don't know how, but you're going to do it. Like, you're not like, you're clean right now. You don't even have the capacity to go do those things that, you know, you're not driven by your addiction anymore, even though I'm still mentally ill up here. And those are the ways that I was used to, because I did it for the last 5 years. It was hard to break. So anyways, I went back, and the next day I put my skates on for the first time in like 8 years. And where I was living at the time was on like a lake up here. And that's why I was out in the middle of nowhere, and pretty much in the bush. And there's a lake, and literally the driveway was ice. So I skated down the driveway of ice right onto the lake, and I went skating for like 5 minutes and came back up. And my girlfriend's like, I've never seen you smile so much in my life. And I was like, yeah, not that I knew her very well at the time, but she said that. And I was like, I got to do something with hockey. And so I didn't know what to do. I mean, I literally hadn't skated for 8 years. I hadn't talked to anybody in hockey, nothing. I was like, I thought, you know, who the hell is going to listen to me? Like, after all that I had done, all that I had gone through, like, my time in hockey was done. And you know, I ended up reaching out to a local junior team, and I said, hey, listen, you know, I introduced myself through email, and, you know, if you Google my name, this is what you're going to see. And you have to remember, this is before the podcast, before any stories were written. And all it was either my short time in pro and then stories about me going to jail and everything else. And so I was like, I just told him, I was like, this is what you're going to see. I said, but I really just want a chance. I said, like, if there's anything I can do to help your team, whether it's sit in the stands and they don't even know I'm there and I'll take stats, I'll do it. Like, I don't even need to meet any of them. Whatever you need, I'll do it. I just want to be at the rink again. I want to do stuff. And with no expectation, I was just like, this guy's not going to write me back, or he's going to tell me to beat it. And the next day he wrote me an email, and he's like, hey, we're in the middle of playoffs right now, but as soon as the season's over, you know, I'd like to sit down and have coffee with you. And his name is Mark Gagnon. At the time, I didn't realize he was actually a police officer, which was really weird, kind of funny. And we ended up, you know, not having that coffee, but we've stayed connected. But it was in that moment, I was like, you know what, like, maybe, just maybe, people will give me a chance. And so I think it was, I don't know, maybe a week or two later, I recorded the first episode of my podcast, and the rest is history. And, you know, it's kind of crazy. It just the way that it kind of fell into my lap. And I was very lucky that I got guys like my old coach, Terry Bruskowski, who's, you know, he's worn more captaincies in professional hockey than anybody, including the Chicago Blackhawks. So, you know, he came on, and then I got Doug McLean and, you know, Theron Fleury and, you know, Chris Nyland and all these guys. And I'll be honest, I don't bug the current, like, I have friends in the NHL that I've sort of reconnected with, but I don't bug them during the season or anything. I just leave them be. If they want to come, they know where I'm at. And I've talked to them and whatever, but I've been really lucky that, you know, early on, a couple of people really lent some credibility to my podcast. And then, you know, the podcast is one very small part of it. I do a lot of them. I love doing it because I like to talk, as you can tell, but I also like to connect with people. And my big passion, though, is really puck support. I mean, I'm telling you, there's a list of names, and, you know, I know that this isn't video, but like, if you look like in any of our clothing, like, there's names of every single, like, we have a list. So that's my old coach. And you might like, I think he might have played. Oh no, this is Matt. I have a different one on, but in the sweatshirt, I have like another name. You can't see it in the camera, but, you know, the lists are on there. There's Bob Probert on there, Steve Montador on our list, like Todd Ewan, like, the list goes on, and right down to minor hockey players. Like, put it this way. I knew there was a problem when I found the story of Nick and Jack Savage, who were brothers, and they both overdosed in the same night at a party, you know, 18 and 20 years old, and hockey players. And, you know, I was like, you know what, like, this is crazy. Like, you know, I mean, it's way beyond hockey. Let's be honest. Mental health and addiction is just part of life. But if we can somehow put a dent in it, in the hockey world, and I know that being a hockey player, sometimes it takes a hockey player to resonate that with. Yeah. And, you know, there's a couple women on there as well, unfortunately. Suicide and overdose. Everybody on that list is either suicide or an overdose. And people will argue that, you know, Bob Probert's in that picture and he died of a heart attack. But I've become very close to Danny Probert and the kids. And it's pretty well known about his struggles. But, you know, I mean, it's pretty fair to say that, the reason why that happened was because of the hard lifestyle he lived. And, it's really tragic. And it just seems like every day I'm hearing of another story of somebody struggling, and every other week I'm adding somebody to that list. Not necessarily like it's happening yesterday, but it's like, hey, this happened 5 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago. And we're just continually, honoring these individuals that we've lost prematurely to these terrible issues. And, like when it comes to putting those names in the hat and the shirt, like I personally do that. Like that's what I do. Like I'm the only one that's ever put a name in any of this clothing. And every time I put a name in there, it's like, I see my own name going on there. I'm like, it should be me. Like I should be gone right now. Like there's no way, with the amount of times I overdose, serious suicide attempts where I'm waking up in the hospital with heart rate monitors on me and my parents around me. The amount of times I've been Narcaned and everything else. It's just, there's no other explanation except I really believe that I'm doing exactly what I was meant to do. I don't think I was ever meant to play professional hockey for a long time. I think I just made it far enough and made the connections I needed to make to be able to have this platform. And what we're doing here though, like I didn't name it the Brady Leavold Foundation. Like it's puck support. Like I'm not fit to run, like where I want this organization to be. Like I'm not fit to run this organization. Like I just want to be a soldier. I hope one day I can be, I really do. And I'll do it as long as I can. And I'll keep trucking and trying and everything else. But like for the last year, like anything on social media, any website, everything. I did it all. Like it was just me doing absolutely everything. And I don't know how to do that stuff, but I figured it out because I felt like I needed to. But finally now people are starting to realize that I'm really serious about this. And we've been really lucky with some of the connections we've been able to make. And we have some really exciting announcements coming down the line aside from the NHL, but I just, can't talk about those right now. But it's, it's a real honor, guys, to be able to sit here and talk to you and to be able to remember all of these men and women that we've lost. It's honestly, it's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It really is.
Yeah. And it's great to hear that, unfortunately, your story is so tragic and heavy, but it's good to see that you were able to kind of go full circle and find the positive things and to do so many great things. And I know you're making an impact on so many people's lives that are even not hockey related, and you're doing a really good thing, and we're super excited for you, and obviously really supportive of what you're doing. And while you're on the topic of puck support and your podcast, can you tell people, what they could expect out of your podcast and where they can listen to you and where they can find you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I typically try to do them Wednesdays and Sundays. And if you go back, to the first early episodes, I apologize. You want to listen to that. It was originally called Hockey to Heroin, the Road to Recovery. It's since been changed to Hockey to Hell and Back with the number 2 instead of spelled like T-O. But, I do them live. All my podcasts are live videos now. And, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. But primarily I get most of my listenership through audio still. It's everywhere. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, it's everywhere. But what you're going to expect, in the early episodes, pretty rough around the edges, a lot of swearing, a lot of, just me being me. And I think over the last year, you'll notice, especially lately, like I don't have a problem with swearing and stuff, but I choose not to on my podcast. I know I just swore earlier, but sometimes I believe there's a time and a place for it. But I'm really, just trying to, and my guests swear all the time though, but it's like, I used to have the worst mouth on my podcast, and I would go back and listen. It's like, you know what, like that probably shouldn't have been said there in that context. I didn't need to, but it was because I was so passionate, and I still am. And what to expect, depending on who's on. We talk a lot about life, much like we did tonight, and people's struggles. Coming up, I got Kelly Ewan coming on, Todd Ewan's wife, which is going to be exciting. But yeah, it's ranging from Stanley Cup champions, Hockey Hall of Famers, to junior guys that didn't pan out, stories like mine. We have a lot of fun, but most of the time it's pretty serious conversation. And before I say anything else, it's like I I won't say which podcast or anything, but I firmly believe that there's a couple podcasts out there that are extremely dangerous, especially when you look at some of the topics and how they discuss things and the way they're talking about, I'll say women, glorifying partying. There's more than one too. So we're not just talking about the one, but it's like when you have the attention of people like you do, and you're on that platform, you know, I wish people would understand that they have an opportunity to make a difference, instead of making it about always being funny or trying to impress people or money or, you know, or any of it. So you're not going to get any of that stuff on my podcast. You know, you'll hear the odd funny stories and different things, but it's not, you know, it's more of a life-based, how are we going to make a difference in the world? That's what my podcast is about. Puck Support, pucksupport.com, at Puck Support on Instagram and Twitter. We don't have the greatest, I don't know how to run social media. I missed that while I was in my addiction. So I'm learning about hashtagging and everything else.
Social media sucks. It's so terrible. It's so hard.
Yeah. I'm not the greatest at it, but you know, if there's, you know, I'm starting to pick up steam a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's been an exciting last year, and I don't anticipate slowing down anytime soon. I work, you know, and when I say work, I mean, I volunteer about 16 hours a day, most days, between, you know, talking to people, answering messages. I'll get on the phone with people that I don't know. I try to make time for absolutely everybody, which I can't always do, but I find a way. But, you know, working on Puck Support is my main project. And if anybody listens to my podcast, I put a lot of time into them. You know, I do my homework, and I try my best to bring out the best conversation. It's not always what I hope or anticipate, but sometimes it blows me away. And I feel that, you know, and sometimes it's nothing I'm doing. It's these guys and girls that come on and are willing to open up and show their real selves. And I think that really resonates with people. And my goal when I started everything was to help one person. And I can confidently say that I've done that tenfold. And that's not to boost my own ego or anything, but I'm really proud of that. And but I never let it get to my head, because there's always more work to do. And there's always one more person struggling. And there's always one more person that needs, you know, care and love and attention and support. And it's been a big task. It's been a huge task, and sometimes overwhelming, but I feel like I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing.
Well, we're grateful that you're out there doing that, and being that helping hand that maybe you didn't have when you needed it most. And all the things and conversations you have are great on your podcast with your guests that go beyond just the things you were saying. So, but you are no exception to our last three questions, Brady. We do like to still have a little bit of fun with
that.
Okay, like we could be serious, but we still have to add a little bit of humor.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I took it in such a serious direction. I tend to do that with things, so that's...
You don't need to apologize for anything. Our conversations go wherever they go. We don't... We go for it. We go where the conversation is going. So, our final three questions. Who is your favorite hockey hunk?
My favorite hockey hunk. I got to go like current or past, whenever.
Either.
Whatever you want. Maybe both.
I got to pick Pavel Bure. He's my favorite player of all time. Current player, who do I think is... Who do I think? And I have no problem telling you. If I see a good-looking guy, I'd be like, that's a good-looking guy. Who's a good-looking guy in the NHL? Who's got those eyes? I wish Mike Fisher was still playing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good question.
You can still say Mike Fisher. You don't have to even pick a current guy.
Mike Fisher, man. Like, those eyes. Like, come on. Like, how can you?
Oh, I know.
Do that? Jamie Benn's pretty good looking too. So I'll go with Benny. Yeah, Benny can have it. Not that he needs it, but...
No. Who is your favorite hockey lady?
My favorite hockey lady, I got to go with Kendall Coyne. Yes. Like, no question. And I know we're maybe running out of time, but, you know, I was in jail when she skated in that Fastest Skater. competition, and I literally fell off my chair. That changed everything. Not just for me. I'm speaking about the entire hockey world. I mean, she kicked some serious ass that day, and I don't think anybody was expecting that. And I was so happy to see that, and it's really opened, the doors for the women. And I'm just, I'm really proud of her for doing that, because that would not have been easy, man. She opened the whole thing in front of all the best hockey players and a sold out rink, and it's just like, wow.
She just crushed it. She's a badass. And our final question is, do you have a Sidney Crosby story?
Ooh, Sidney Crosby story. Well, we're the same age, so I don't know him. But obviously I always say I hated him because I was jealous of him. Because
a lot of people say that.
But let me finish the story here. So Sidney Crosby, I had so much hate on for him. I was so jealous of him. But back in 2010, when Canada won the gold, I was downtown Vancouver, because that's where I'm from. And we were down there, and I was slowly coming around to Sidney Crosby during that tournament. And then when he won the gold, he scored the gold medal, game-winning goal or whatever, I was so envious. But about a half an hour after, we're walking around downtown Vancouver, I thought there was 5 million people down there. It was nuts, right? But everybody's going, Sidney Crosby. And I literally threw up my hands. I'm like, all right, he's the best. I love the guy. He's the best. How can you hate him? He's the best. I love the guy. And since that moment, I have so much respect for him. I think on and off the ice, he's such a great ambassador for the game, and somebody that I would like to see maybe show a little bit more, but he's very careful, and I understand why. But is there one bad thing that anybody can say about Sidney Crosby? So
nope. That's why we ask the question, because everybody has some kind of story about him, and it's all positive, and we need some more of that in the sport and in our lives.
No, that's great. I like that question.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.